Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that FPL show. We've had a week off because of the international break, but we are back, and hopefully you will enjoy it. I'm joined by always by Danny.
Yeah,
Hello,
hi,
Danny.
it's good to be back. I'm ready to talk about more Premier League.
Well, that's good to hear, Danny. And we're joined by a man who really needs no introduction, despite the fact that he does, because he's never been on the channel before, Danny. But he's the reigning, defending champion of our fantasy league. Chodders. Rodney, how you doing, man?
I'm not too bad, fella. How are you?
I'm good. Right, should we just get into it off the back? Obviously, we've been in the international break. I find it a bit boring, I won't lie. But we've had 3 weeks of the Premier League. How have you guys enjoyed it? Any surprises?
I think, to be fair, considering their start on 0 points, but after 3 games, I think Wolves have been absolutely brilliant. Going forward, they look amazing. How they haven't scored yet, I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah, they've looked really good going forward, Rod. Been really impressed by Trincao.
Trincao he's essentially a Dama Traore with a bit more skill and a bit more end product. He is rapid.
Yeah, he's been really good. It's just been quite surprising. Adama, is he ever going to get to be a quality player in front of goal? He misses so many chances.
He's very raw. He's got unreal talent, but he's just so raw. And you would have thought after all these clubs that he's been to, Villa, Middlesbrough, Wolves, you would have thought end product would improve, but it just hasn't. But he's got all the skills to become a class player. You just can't seem to get there.
Yeah, and he has stayed at Watford. There was links with him going to Spurs, but it didn't happen. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to do now at Watford. At Wolves, sorry. You know, they've got Neto, Trincao, Traore, and Podence. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see how their new manager, really decides upon who he's going to be starting and that. So, yeah, I've been really surprised with Wolves as well. Danny, who have you been surprised by?
Well, I'm looking at the table right now, and, I'm going to pick the obvious team, and that is the team that is at the top of the table. That is Tottenham. Who would have thought that they would be leading after 3 games? Not me, especially with how the whole Kane situation was going this summer, but they've kept hold of him. Nuno has brought that defensively strong style of play to White Hart Lane, and it's really showed. I don't think they've been tested too much. I think Man City weren't ready for the season in that first game of the season where they beat City. City almost were still in pre-season mode a bit. So it will be interesting to see, because if you remember last season, Mourinho, I think, had a great start to the season with Spurs, and they were top of the table in December. But yeah, it has surprised me, and I really hope Nuno does well. I've got a soft spot for Spurs.
I think looking who they've played, Watford, City and Wolves, which is no particular order, they have only scored 3 goals. And I don't know if you saw that goal against Watford especially, where it was a complete fluke. I couldn't tell you about the City game as I didn't watch it, but I think what Nuno brings is a defensively sound team. But as we have saw at Wolves, he can bring attack with Jimenez and Traore, but I can't see Spurs being anywhere close to up there come the end of the season, to be honest. But they've started well. Can they hold it? I'm not too sure.
I actually disagree. I've been really impressed with Spurs. Obviously, I think they're going to become more offensively, more balanced, let's say, with Kane coming back into the team now. I was really impressed in the City game with Lucas Moura. And with Nuno, I think they are going to be a bit more expansive than they were under Jose. Obviously, they're still going to have that defensive style, but on the counter-attack, I think they're going to look really good. I think Son started pretty hot. It's going to be really interesting to see how Spurs, kick on now. A couple tricky fixtures to start, City and Wolves. But now, they've got Crystal Palace coming up this weekend. It's going to be interesting to see how Nuno does with this squad, and he's brought in a new signing in Emerson. Be interesting to see who does start at right back for him. I think he was starting Doherty the other week, but maybe he's going to be starting Emerson from now on. The one I want to run by you boys, who I've been really impressed with, who haven't really been getting too much talk because they weren't the busiest team in the transfer market. They didn't bring in any of these big names or anything like that, but they brought in a top quality manager, and that's Everton. I've been really impressed with Everton, especially their midfield. I think Doucouré and Allen have been absolutely superb in the games I've watched. I was really impressed with them against Leeds. And I think Demarai Gray has to be the bargain of the summer. 1.8 million, Demarai Gray. We saw glimpses of him at Leicester where he was scoring great goals like the one against United. And Everton have just looked really solid. I think as the games are going on, you're seeing Rafa, introduce a bit more defensive stability within the team. And I'm really excited to see what Everton can do kicking on from now on.
I think going off, obviously, what we saw last year with Ancelotti, I think they look like a completely different outfit this year. And especially Calvert-Lewin, he's got that confidence that he had at the start of last year, where he's even taken penalties off Richarlison. It kind of shows you the confidence flowing through the team at the moment, really.
Yeah, and that was definitely probably the funniest moment of the other week where Richarlison was just giving him the dead eyes because he wanted that penalty and Calvert-Lewin was never going to let him take it. I just want to ask you, Rod, about the midfield of Doucouré and Allen. They've started off really solid. How do you rate them as a midfield partnership in the Prem?
So, obviously, we know Allen has been at Napoli, Doucouré has been at Watford, and I thought working together, I didn't know how it was going to work because I don't know too much about these two players. But I think this year especially, Doucouré is going to be more of an attacking midfielder. As we've seen, he's plowed forward, he's got into those positions, and Allen's just brilliant at getting it off the centre-backs and dictating play. But together, obviously, one's a big powerhouse, the other one's a small, nifty defensive midfielder. They work really, really well. And I think it's one of the strongest midfields in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Especially if they can consistently play together.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If they can both stay fit and play together. I know it's going to sound a bit stupid, but Doucouré's kind of giving me Yaya Touré vibes. Obviously, he's never going to be Yaya Touré, but especially in the first game of the season, the goal he scored, it was an absolute screamer. And I've been really impressed with Everton. And just really excited to see their games coming on now. I think they got a tough one this weekend against Burnley. But be interesting to see how they kick on after that.
I think especially we look at Doucouré's first 3 games. So obviously Everton won 3-1 against Southampton, drew with Leeds 2-2, and beat Brighton 2-0. And in his first game, he got a goal. In his second game, he got an assist. That shows you how far forward he's getting and which positions he's putting himself in. I think he's a mega player for them this year.
And also, I think a lot of people think of Rafa as a defensive manager, which he is. But, I mean, how many goals have they scored? They scored 7 and they only conceded 3 so far. They look in good nick. I'm really interested to see what they can do.
Staying on the topic of Rafa, how do you feel about obviously him being a Liverpool legend and him going to Everton, where you can imagine that some fans probably aren't still too happy with it? Yeah,
well, personally, I think Everton should be the happier of the two. I feel like Liverpool fans at the moment feel like, oh, we really don't care. You've got him now, but we had the best Rafa, this and that. But he looks like he could do something with Everton. And if I was a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't be very happy with that.
I think 100%. We've seen the capabilities that Rafa has. He's a brilliant manager. And if he can get the best out of that Everton team, then they probably should be up there for Europa League this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do go with the season. Like, are they going to be consistent enough? Because if they are consistent, they could be knocking on the door of the Champions League even, because I think they've got one of the most underrated squads in the league. Because they've got quality from back to front, really. And they've got a really good manager, so it's going to be interesting to see.
I think they're going to be up there. I think the top 4 for me, obviously we're only 3 games in, it is pretty much decided already. But 5th and 6th, I think, is fully up for grabs.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, moving on. It was probably the biggest topic since our last show. We was talking about him going to City last show, but there was a U-turn, and I was so delighted. Ronaldo has gone back to United, and I can't tell you how I feel about it. I was just elated. The joy was unreal. And it's not even because of the player we're getting. It's just because I remember I can't even remember how old I was probably 10 or 11. I felt absolutely heartbroken when he moved. I understood it, but I can remember his first game for Real Madrid after he left United against Shamrock Rovers. But to see him back in a United shirt, it's just unreal. Danny, obviously you're a big United fan, big Ronaldo fan. How did you feel when the news broke he was going back to United?
For me, it didn't feel real, you know. I feel like we were in some like weird timeline, some alternate reality, and it hasn't really sunk in for me yet. I'm not going to feel like it's real until he's there. He's playing against Newcastle United on Saturday. But when he does, it's going to be an amazing moment.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, since the last week's show, he signed for United. He's also played for Portugal. He had the chance to become the all-time goal-scoring international player, and he missed the penalty. But after that, he scored 2 headers. I saw a lot of people saying, he's washed after he missed the penalty, to then, just being sharp when he scored the 2 headers against Ireland. The question I have for you, Rod, is how does he fit in at United? Is he too old for the Premier League?
I was actually thinking about this the other day, obviously from a fantasy perspective and from just a football fan perspective. And I think Ronaldo's a leader. He's a machine. He is, we can say, built different. But obviously, we know Bruno was the main man in the team, and now obviously Ronaldo's going to want to take that role. I think Man United need a striker. I think you've got Cavani, but like Ronaldo, he is getting on, but he is still an unbelievable striker. But obviously, the competitions you're in, you need a striker. Martial just doesn't seem to be cutting it. I think as a centre forward, he's going to fit in brilliantly. He's going to be in those positions. Bruno's going to get far more assists, maybe less goals, but far more assists. And I think he's a brilliant signing. Even at the age of 36, you know exactly what you're getting. I think it's a brilliant signing, and I'm just very glad he didn't go to City. As being a Villa fan, I do not like City one bit.
I can understand that, Rod. Talking about Ronaldo now, people are saying, it's obvious goals. We're going to get 20 plus goals in the Premier League from Ronaldo. Do you think he's going to hit the ground running, Danny?
Absolutely. You just can't bet against a player with that monster mentality. I think he's played less games than Romelu Lukaku in Serie A last season in a struggling Juventus team, under Pirlo. He's been sacked now, but he still managed to be Serie A top scorer. And you just can't bet against him. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. He's now the international top goal scorer in history. And I think he's going to hit the ground running. But the most important thing for Manchester United is he's going to increase the performance of the players around him. People are going to be looking at Ronaldo in the training ground and seeing how he does things, and they're going to want to emulate it, and it's just all around good for the team.
Just seeing his work ethic, and it's going to motivate other players to do just as well, if not better. And the one thing I am worried about with this United side is the holding midfield spot. And I think we've seen in the opening games from United, I think the Leeds game's a bit of, a game where anything can happen because it's so end-to-end. But in the Southampton game and Wolves game, I thought United really showed, their lack of a CDM, being able to progress the ball forward, dictate the tempo. And United are actually getting less chances because of this. And I do worry for Ronaldo at United. Is he going to get as many chances as he did at other clubs?
I think obviously there was talk all summer about Camavinga. There's been talk all summer about you need a defensive midfielder, and obviously it hasn't materialised into anything. But obviously I don't know too much about United, but I from what I've seen, I know McTominay is a good player. Can he play that role consistently and be good?
Yeah, I don't know if he can do it at a level that United fans want him to do it. But the question I really do have for you, Rod, is you see a lot of United fans still complaining about the fact of the lack of the CDM. And if you look at United's summer, obviously it was an unbelievable summer. But if they really wanted to go out and win the Premier League, you think they would have gotten a CDM? How do you feel from it, coming from another fan's standpoint, at United fans kind of moaning about not having the CDM? Do you think it's spoiled, or how do you feel?
I think Aston Villa were in exactly the same position. Our midfield is where we lacked, and obviously United's midfield is where they sometimes lack, where you just need that powerhouse. You need that defensive midfielder who can dictate play, who can get the ball and spray it. That's why we were putting in bids for Ward-Prowse. So I completely understand where Manchester United fans are coming from, where you can see that's the hole in the team. That's where you need an improvement, and you just haven't been able to get one. And obviously, you can make other signings, of course, but when you need that one player, you're always going to be disappointed when he just doesn't come or he doesn't sign. But at the same time, I think, are there too many defensive midfielders out there that could play that role for United and be consistent at a level where, obviously, Camavinga, who was linked all summer, he is only 18 years old. Real Madrid obviously have gone out and bought him, but play in the Premier League and to play at such a high level in the Champions League also at such a young age, you either thrive or you capitulate. So I just don't know if there was that midfielder out there who United were looking for and who Villa were looking for respectively.
Yeah, it is a bit weird now in modern day football. There does seem to be a lack of the number 6 and more of a, there's more 8s coming into the game. The game's becoming like definitely faster pace. It's becoming about more of like athletic midfielders, I'd say. But the last thing I want to get from you boys on Ronaldo is I would like to get a prediction of how many goals you see him getting this season for United in the Premier League. I'll go to you first, Danny.
He's going to score 26 goals for Manchester United in the Premier League and 34 in all competitions. You heard it here first. That's my prediction.
How many penalties, Danny?
10.
10. Okay. Rod?
I think I'm going to use some stats here. So while he was at Serie A, he averaged 27 goals. So in his first year, 21, second year, 31, and third year, 29. And obviously, we can't compare the Serie A to Prem, so to speak. But I still think he does get 20 goals. Will he take penalties off Bruno?
Yes.
From a fantasy perspective, I'd like to see them share. But he's the main man. He's come in. Cavani's gifted in the 7 shirt. I think he gets 22 goals and he probably gets about 8 penalties.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'd probably say Ronaldo's odds on... I'm going to go in the middle of you guys. I'm going to go 25. I think he's going to be on penalties, and I'd say about 8 penalties. But the transfer window, deadline day was big. Obviously, the deal of Messi and Ronaldo went through, and it looked like Mbappe was going to go to Real Madrid, but it didn't happen. So it was definitely decided who the biggest transfer was of the transfer window, and it was to Newcastle. Santiago Munoz has signed for Newcastle. He's back. Glenn is going to be there to help him. He saw him play, man.
Hey, Glenn! You know when I played against Fulham? My dad saw the game! He saw me play, man! Fulham!
I think Muñoz is a big signing, and I hope they can bring in one of his compatriots, Gavin Harris, because I have seen big things about them. And
Be interesting to see if his girlfriend Rose is going to be there.
I don't like that Gavin Harris. He's a bit of a playboy.
Yeah, anyway, so that was just like one of the highlights for me on transfer deadline day because it came out of nowhere. It was a bit like the Danny Ings signing. It just came out of nowhere. And I thought, is it one of those like jokes online? But it did happen. A young player, 18 years old, from Mexico, identical name to the hero from the movie Goal. Yeah, nothing more to say about it, I guess. We don't really know anything about him. Be interested to see if we get to see him this year. I'm sure the crowd will go mental for him. But I'd like to... Go ahead.
This transfer window has been, I think, the craziest it's been in a while, where we've seen the caliber of players go from clubs to clubs. And I think it's going to be an interesting season of football, especially a Champions League perspective, where PSG clearly have probably the best team on paper. But will it work? It probably won't. Once we've got City, we've got Chelsea, we've got United, PSG. It's going to be an interesting season of football.
Yeah, and most of the teams you said there were in the Premier League. And in terms of transfers, I would like to talk to you boys about who did win the transfer window. For me, it's out of 3. It's out of Chelsea, United, and Villa. I'd like to go to you, Danny, first. Who do you think won the transfer window and why?
Well, there's no clear answer to this. in my opinion. I don't think anyone had the perfect transfer window, but I
Yeah.
think, as you said, those three teams you listed all had probably the best three transfer windows in the Premier League. You know, as a United fan, I've just got to go with United for winning the transfer window because of the Ronaldo signing, but also because of the Varane signing and the Jadon Sancho signing. I think Ronaldo is just going to lift the club so much, and it's just going to affect the whole team. And Rafael Varane is probably the best defensive signing in the whole of the transfer window as well. He is incredible. He's won 4 Champions Leagues. And to get him on such a cheap fee, cheaper than what Arsenal paid for Ben White, is incredible. Jadon Sancho, again, one of the best young wingers in world football. It's going to take a bit of time for him to settle in my opinion. But again, he's going to reap the rewards. And United are going to be firing on all cylinders. Of course, we've already discussed it. United didn't get that CDM, which is what coming back to me saying no one had a perfect transfer window. Okay, United didn't get their CDM. You know, you could say Villa had a great transfer window, but they lost Grealish, and you know, no team is going to be perfect, and that's just football, really. No team's going to have the perfect window. You know, it's about economics at the end of the day, and teams need to sell and buy. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
United.
Rod, I'm guessing you're going to say Villa.
I think from an unbiased point of view, I wouldn't say we've had the best transfer window. I think, for me, it still is Manchester United. You have strengthened probably where you need. Obviously, defensive midfielder would have also been lovely. But I do think I have to go with Manchester United, where Ronaldo, Varane and Sancho is 3 brilliant signings. Like Danny said, the pedigree of Varane to just step in alongside Maguire. We saw it in the Wolves game. Varane was outstanding. I think that's just a glimpse of what's to come. With Sancho, I think Sancho's a big signing. We've seen the numbers he can pull up in the Bundesliga, but he needs to settle in. I think he will settle in with time. He just hasn't quite done that yet. And obviously, we know exactly what you're getting with Ronaldo. He's a frontman. He's going to score goals. And he's going to put you in those positions where you need to be. So I'm going to have to go with United. But from a Villa point of view, of course, we lost Jack Grealish, and there's no one like him around. I think we've strengthened what we need to strengthen. We've put it in 3 attacking positions, left wing, right wing, and striker, where Ings is a huge signing for us. I think Ings, he'll work very well with Watkins. He'll get 15-plus goals, hopefully. Buendia on the right wing, who can also play 10. We saw that he also needs to settle in like Sancho. He's a brilliant dribbler, brilliant at ball retaining. I think he's going to be a big player. And then Bailey, he gives you that pace, he gives you that skill. And like Sancho, come from the Bundesliga, will need to settle in, but he's played 1 game for 10 minutes and he's got an assist. So I think we will be okay. We do need to start playing some real football. But I want to go for top 10 this year. So anything above that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Villa myself. Obviously, you know, coming to let Jack Grealish go, I think was the right decision, to be honest, because the lump sum you got for him was, you know, a lot of money. You know, record Premier League signing, and how you spent that money. I think the 3 players you mentioned, you know, Buendia, Bailly, and Danny Ings, you know, it's just perfect, really. But the thing I was really impressed with Villa doing as well was getting Ashley Young on a free transfer. I think, you know, his experience, he might not be the player he used to be, but, you know, as a leader in the dressing room as well, he's going to add a lot to that team. And Tuanzebe on loan, I think, is a really good signing. We've been raving about Tuanzebe for years now as, you know, we think he's a real good defender. He's never really got his chance at United due to injuries and maybe the manager not thinking he's the right choice. But as a backup for Villa or, you know, a player who can play multiple positions, you know, right back, CDM, I think that was a great signing.
I think Tuanzebe, he, especially now, Mings has got a broken rib. We saw he did play for England the other day. Konza looks like he's got a serious injury, so I think it's going to be a big test for Tuanzebe now. He's going to probably step in and play alongside Mings, like he did in that season where we got promoted, and I think it's going to be a huge experience for him. And like we saw with Ashley Young as well, he's 36 years of age, but in the Serie A last year, he still played over 15 games. And he's very healthy. He's very fit. So I think we've done the correct recruitment. Obviously, a defensive midfielder would have been lovely, but I think we've strengthened where we need to strengthen, and I'm excited to see what we can do.
I think if you would have gotten that CDM, obviously you do have the likes of Louise and McGinn, who's a bit more of a box-to-box, but it really would have topped it off as a, as Danny says, a perfect window maybe. But I disagree with Danny when he said no one has a perfect window, because for me, I look at what Chelsea have done, and I think they've actually had the perfect window. If you look at the team, how they, what they were, they have strengthened that squad, and they've definitely, for me, gone to title favourites. Lukaku, just an unreal signing, and he just suits the way Chelsea play. I saw on Monday Night Football they was talking about how, Klopp would never go for him because he doesn't suit his system, but he does suit Chelsea. Obviously it was a big fee, but you look at the outgoings from Chelsea, they let go of Tammy Abraham, Kurt Zouma, and Tomori. And they got big money for these players, but not only that, they do also have, buyback options on the players, which I think is, very important, because Abraham looks like a real good player, but doesn't really get the opportunity at Chelsea. And Tomori, he looks like a really good centre-half. So it's interesting to see what happens in the future of those two. But on deadline day, Chelsea were able to get Sel Niguez across the line for a loan fee of 4.5 million. And they also have the option to buy at the end of the season. And I think that's just a perfect sort of move for Chelsea, because their midfield is already so strong in depth with Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho, and I know I'm missing someone else out. They got another one. But anyway, they got this midfield, and now they got Niguez in there. And if he works, great. It's going to improve the squad, improve the depth. But if he doesn't, it doesn't matter, because it was 4.5 million, which is literally pennies for Chelsea. And from a business standpoint, they've done really well. Their expenditure was 108 million, and they brought in 110 million. So, Lukaku kind of paid for himself. So Chelsea have done really well, and for me, they had the perfect window.
I think you're completely right. Where we saw it in the Arsenal game, where Lukaku just worked very well for Chelsea. The link-up play was phenomenal. He'd get the ball, he'd hold off Murray. He bullied their centre-backs, and see they brought in Sal Niguez as defensive midfielder, where they've got a squad depth is absolutely brilliant. And I think Tuchel was the right man to come in. You saw what he can do, what he did last year, and I think this year they're just going to go from strength to strength. And I think at Manchester City, they do have clearly the best squads in the Premier League. But for me, I can see Chelsea winning the league, because Tuchel's tactics, the personnel they have, I think it's going to work very well, and they're gonna do very well this year.
Yeah, bully Lukaku, right, Danny?
Bully Lukaku.
Right. So from deadline day, I just wanted to ask you boys, out of the signings, is there any must-have in your FPL teams?
I think going from game week 7 and the Chelsea's fixtures swing, Romelu Lukaku is a must. I think he offers phenomenal value at especially 11.5. He might have gone up to 11.6 now, but that is still phenomenal value. 1 mil below Ronaldo. So I think Romelu Lukaku 100%. And also, it would be interesting to see if Daniel James can offer any value, where I've got competition there in Rafinha and Harrison, but there have been talks that Rafinha is going to move into number 10 and Daniel James out there. And as we know with Bielsa likes people that run, people that work for the team. I think Daniel James is definitely one to look out for. In weeks.
More on the assist side, you'd say?
I think so. Obviously, we've seen he is a raw talent, but like we see, Bielsa can nurture players. He did it with Alvin Phillips. He did it with Ben White, and I think he can do it with Daniel James. They wanted him, to be fair, 2 years ago, where apparently Swansea's telephones were just switched off and it didn't go through.
Yeah, he was holding the shirt, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, the thing I find interesting with Dan James is how he never really suited United, because a lot of teams come to United and they like to sit deep, and he can't really utilise his pace that way. But with Leeds, they seem to always find a way to drag every team into a open game, which I just think is going to suit him down to a T.
Yeah, all of that space to run into, and as you said, Leeds are the perfect team for him. that end-to-end style of play, the games, all that space running in behind. You see with how they play against United at the first game of the season, how that game was end-to-end. Obviously, they lost by quite a big margin, but they did have a lot of space in that game. And if you think Dan James, all that space, think of how many times he can run through with his pace, get goals, get assists. Very good signing.
For you, Danny, is there any other sort of standout from the window?
This is the boring pick, but I gotta say, you can't look past Cristiano Ronaldo in your fantasy team. He's just guaranteed goals, I'm afraid, and there's no looking past him. Simple as that.
Yeah, fair enough. In terms of deadline day, I think it's going to be interesting to see Vlasic for West Ham. Is he going to get starting role straight away? I think if he does, it's probably going to look like Fornals may drop out of the team. Be interested to see what he's like. I haven't seen anything of him, but I'm interested to see if he does play and how he does play, because I think he's pretty good value for FPL.
As we've seen with West Ham, they do like their Czech Republic players, and I think a word for Agent Souček, he's brought in Kufal or Sofal, and he's brought in Vlasic. So I think that Czech Republic contingent is going to work very well in the Premier League, and we've seen what Moyes can do for outer players, where they've started. Antonio, he's turned into an absolute beast this year. Last year we saw his dodgy finishing. This year he's been clinical.
Yeah, man. Okay, just before we preview next week's games, I just want to talk FPL with you boys. I'm going to kick it to you first, Rod. How are you doing so far? Anything you're looking at? Anything you got, coming up and you're thinking, yeah, I might do that?
I think this year has been my most outstanding year, where I have gone from strength to strength, where at the start, I was in the first 2 game weeks, I was top 100k. Now I've slipped to top 200k placed 152,000. But I think this year you had to go with a template team, which basically consisted of Salah, Fernandes, Shaw, Sanchez, Antonio, Ings, and etc. And I think where I went wrong last week, which is on hindsight is a wonderful thing, is I didn't captain Antonio. I went with Salah, Antonio, Horde. So that's where I went wrong. But so far, I'm happy with how I'm doing. I've made 3 key transfers as well. I've taken a -4, but I think with Ronaldo coming in, you have to get him into the team for his homecoming. Yeah. I've gone with Ronaldo, Sissoko for Watford, and Marsalin, and I've transferred out Ings, Buendia, and Tsimikas. So I think it'd be interesting to see how they work. But we've seen Wolves; they're defensively resolute. You know what you get with Ronaldo, and I needed a 4.5 playing midfielder, and I think Sissoko, he can fit that role, and he can come in when my starters isn't playing.
Yeah, fair enough. So you're top of our fantasy group at the moment. Danny, how are you doing?
I feel like I've had a poor start, but then when I look at the table, I think, Rod's top of the table. I'm only 40 points behind him, which really isn't that much in a fantasy team, That's just like a good captain pick away, really. I've tried not to panic for that reason. I haven't gone and dived into using my wild card. I'm trying not to take some points hits with transfers. So I'm just going to keep it calm. I have Emi Martinez, and obviously he's in the Brazilian prisons right now. So I've had to take him out and bring in Hugo Lloris, because I think Spurs are just very defensively good, and that could be a good goalkeeper. I have Harry Kane up front. I brought him in last week, and he didn't do anything for me. And I'm still deciding now whether I do take that point sit and bring in Ronaldo. But I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah. Yes, as you said, I think a lot of people might be changing their goalkeeper with Martinez dropping the soap. I'll be honest, guys. I've started shit. I feel like I normally start really good in fantasy, and then I get bored halfway through the year and stop playing and let someone else win, like Rod. But yeah, this year I've started really bad, so I'm definitely gonna have to play all the way through this year just so I can get out of the relegation zone. I lost my head the other week. I took a 12-point hit for no reason. I shouldn't have done it. I just lost my head. And I've lost my head again. I've made... I've used my wild card. The team has changed a lot. I'll just take you through my team. Right, Sanchez in goal, Shaw, Livramento and Duffy. I think Livramento is a must-have for fantasy. For his price, even if he's just on your bench, because it looks like he's going to be playing most games for Southampton this year. I've went with Damari Gray, Trincao, Salah and Ben Rama, a.k.a. Banana Rama, in midfield. Up front, I've gone with Ronaldo, Antonio and Lukaku. On my bench, I've got Steele, Souček, James and Omabama Didier. I'm really happy with my team now. I think it's a solid team. I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that I had to use my wild card, but at the same time, I'm super happy with the team I've got. I can't wait for now to be cheering for Bananarama, fan favourite of ours, Danny. I just think I've got a real solid team now. I think I'm going to win the league.
I think it's important to note as well. We are only 3 games in, and a 50-point deficit means nothing at the moment. Had that been maybe 33 games in, then you'd be struggling. But in 3 games in, there's 35 games to go. It's all to play for.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still the people's champion, the clear favourite to win the league still. It's just going to be interesting. Anyway, boys, I think we should just take a look at next week's fixtures now. You know, obviously we got our teams. Let's take a look at next week's fixtures, break them down, what we think is going to happen.
I think if I can come in with the Palace Spurs one, I think we've seen Vieira's had free reign. He's basically brought in who he'd like. So they haven't started as well as he probably have wanted. He hasn't been able to adopt his philosophy into the game or into a real life situation yet. But I think them being at home, they've got their ultras. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Now, I can see it. I see it being a draw, to be completely honest with you. I can see a 1-1. It's always a hard place to go. I can see a 1-1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a tight game. I'm obviously a big fan of Patrick Vieira. And I'm going to go for a Palace win. I'm going to go 2-1 Palace. Danny's obviously going to go 5-0 Spurs because he loves to slander Vieira. Is that right, Danny?
I'm a realist, and I see Vieira as a manager implementing a style of play which Crystal Palace I just don't think are ready to click with yet. So I think it's going to be very difficult, and it has been very difficult so far. And Spurs are top of the league. They're looking very defensively resolute. I can't see anything more than a 1-0 Spurs win.
No way. Spurs to score 1 goal and win a game again. Shock. I'll take the Arsenal-Norwich game, guys. Battle of the shitters, I'd say. 2 worst teams in the Prem. It's a relegation 6-pointer, this one. I actually see Norwich probably winning. I think Arsenal should win this one pretty clearly, but just the mood around Arsenal at the moment. I think when the club is in such disarray, I think, you know, it affects the fans, affects the players. I could see Norwich picking up a good victory here. I could maybe see a 1-0 Norwich.
I think if we look at it, Arsenal, they've been poor, but as of Norwich, I can't see it. I can't see Arsenal pulling through. You'd hope so. And at home, I'm probably looking at they need to bounce back. Arteta needs to provide some sort of points on the table. I can see 2-0 Arsenal. Have made some good signings. Will they gel? You'd hope so. But I think I'm going to go over 2-0 Arsenal. Okay.
What about you, Danny?
I'm going to agree with Rod and go 2-0 Arsenal. I think the international break came at the perfect time for Arteta. He's had the time to have a bit of a reset, you know, start thinking about tactics a bit more, have a long time prepare for this game. And, you know, it's now or never for Arteta. He really needs to win this game. So I think it will happen. 2-0 Arsenal.
He does lose. Does he get the sack?
Doesn't. Edu's come out, I think it's the transfer director, where he said he needs some time. He's made his signings. Say maybe over 6-7 games time. If they're still doing poor, then he said judge. But at the moment, you have to you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. He has made the signings he wants. He's had a full transfer window. He's had a full pre-season. So if you can implement them and provide results, I think then we can judge him properly. Well, obviously, we've judged him to this day where the team isn't his team, so to speak, but now it's completely his team. He's had full free reign. So I think now we judge in the coming weeks with what Arteta can actually do at Arsenal.
Yeah. Brentford versus Brighton. I think for Brentford, a lot of FPL players were really, big Brentford watchers at the start because everyone had Ivan Toney. He scored the other week, but I think most people have already taken him out of his team. So I think the viewers may go down for Brentford now. But I do see this being quite a competitive game with Brentford and their style. It'd be interesting to see how Graham Potter does use Brighton away at Brentford. I do see Brighton getting the win in this one, though. I'm going to say a 3-1 Brighton win.
I think Potter's style of football is brilliant, and we've seen what they can do. Last year, they did kill some giants in the Premier League, including Man City. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Going to Brentford's ground is going to be even harder, but I do think I can see a draw where we've seen with Brentford so far, they've beat Arsenal 2-0, but then the last two games they've drawn.
Yeah.
I see a 1-1 draw.
Obviously, you were at Villa Park last week and you saw Brentford from the stands. What did you actually think about their style of play and their players? Because obviously a lot of them aren't Premier League proven, but they look like they're willing to put in the hard yards for their manager.
I think as a newly promoted team at the start of the season, you want to take it to teams. You're going to want to show what you're all about, high tempo. And I think I was at the Villa Brentford game. I think against us, you could see their style of play was got 42k fans against them. So they just set in deep, tried to counter when they could. We dominated possession. We didn't create a great deal, which kind of shows you defensively how sound Brentford are. So I did watch the Arsenal game and they took it to Arsenal, first game of the season. So I think at home they're going to be more expansive. They're going to play more attacking, but away they're going to have to sit deep and look for their counter where they've got pace, they've got Mbeumo, they've got Toney. I think away they sit deep and at home they attack, and they're at home this week. So I think we're going to see them attack Brighton.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with Brentford against Palace in that game. The 0-0 draw, I think it was, or was it 1-0? I think 0-0. But yeah, I thought they actually played quite well in that game. Danny, how did you see the Brentford-Brighton one going?
I'm going to be short and sweet with this, and I think Brentford are going to be looking at this as a game they're going to want to win if they're going to stay up. So I'm actually going to go for a very entertaining 3-2 Brentford win.
Okay, fair enough. Rod, Leicester City.
I think two brilliant teams. Leicester's development, Leicester's recruitment has been brilliant, but what you get with Manchester City, I think it's going to be a difficult one. Is City going to finally get into their groove? I can see, it's a sticky one. I do see Man City winning. I see them winning 2-1. I think it's going to be a great game of football to watch. I think last year especially must have been at the Etihad where it 5-2. I think Jack, was it?
I'm not
5-2. It was 5-2.
Yeah,
we saw exactly what type of football both teams can play. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. But I do see City winning 2-1.
Yeah, I'm actually very confused about this game. On the one hand, yes, City do look good, but they haven't really played anyone yet. Obviously, they lost against Spurs, but against Norwich and Arsenal, it's very hard to really judge them because they've had so much of the possession and they've just bossed both teams, but the other teams haven't looked like they wanted to be there. On the other hand, with Leicester, I've actually been really disappointed with Soyuncu. His start to the season, I think he's been really poor, and I think Leicester have looked a bit weak defensively. Obviously, they lost Fofana in pre-season, and they're going to lose him for the rest of the season. It's a really hard one to pick. I'm probably just edging Man City, probably 2-1. Yeah, that's probably all I could say. What about you, Danny?
I'm going to agree with you guys and say 2-1 City is going to be a very entertaining game. I just think this season Leicester are actually going to go backwards. You know, they've nearly made Champions League football 2 years in a row and crumbled at the last moment. And I'm just looking at how teams like United and Chelsea have strengthened even more, and Liverpool look really good this season. I think Leicester actually going to fall away, to be honest. So 2-1 City.
Okay, Danny, return of the king. United against Newcastle.
Oh man, Old Trafford will be absolutely rocking. The atmosphere is going to be electric. Everyone's going to be so excited to see Ronaldo, and it's just going to be a joyous carnival-like atmosphere, and it will just be too much for Newcastle. Just Stevie Bruce and Newcastle, I just don't see them getting anything out of these sorts of games. It's going to be 3-0 United.
Rod?
I think it's Ronaldo's homecoming. He's going to be in the headlines, and I think he's going to prove that on the pitch once again. I can't see a complete whitewash. I think Newcastle have been poor. The recruitment has been poor. All they brought in is Willock. So I think I can't see a Man United. I can see 3-0. Like Danny said, I think it is going to be a whitewash.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends if Santi's playing. But I'm actually not as optimistic as you boys. I just think United are going to do in this game. I think Newcastle can prove to be quite tricky. I think they're going to sit quite deep. I see maybe, if I'm being optimistic, I'm going to say 2-0 United. Otherwise, I'd say maybe 1-0 United. But yeah, Southampton, West Ham, Rod.
Oh, I think it will be a good game. West Ham have come out this year and they've started where they left off last year. They've been brilliant going forward. Defensively, they also look okay. And we saw them against Leicester where they did run a bit riot on the counter-attack with Ben Rama with 4 nows. With Antonio. Southampton, they've started poor. They've lost 2 talismans in Ings and Vestergaard, but away for West Ham, I think it's going to be 2 on West Ham and Antonio double.
Yeah, I can see West Ham winning this one. However, I think Southampton did look really good against Newcastle in the first half. Really should have probably been maybe even 3-0 up. Game sealed then. But I was very impressed with their fight to come back in the end of the game. I'm actually going to go with a draw in this one. I think it might be quite a high-scoring draw. I think this might be 3-3. Danny?
I'm going with 2-1 Southampton. I think they just look very good, for me, especially when in Gameweek 2 against United, they look excellent. I think West Ham are going to be more of a home team this season. They're going to be strong at home. But I could see them struggling in these sorts of games, which will eventually let them down for them progressing on and maybe challenging for top 4. They were going to lose these sorts of games. And 2-1 Southampton.
Yeah, Watford Wolves. I think this game's going to be quite an interesting one. Obviously, Watford back at home. They did a job against your boys, Rod, in the first game week. Struggled a bit since then. And Wolves, obviously, they've looked really good going forward, but they've just lacked that finishing ability. I'm actually thinking Wolves might find their finishing boots in this one, and I'm going to go with Wolves 3-0. Rod?
I think it's an interesting game, especially Watford being at home. If we look at previous games, when Watford have been at home, they have won against Wolves. In the latest, especially, they beat Wolves 2-1 and they beat them 3-2 in the Cup and when being at home. So I think Wolves, they do look a new outfit. Once again, it's going to be a tricky game to predict, but if I had to go with it, I can see Wolves getting their first win. I think 2-0.
I would have to agree with you there. I think the floodgates are going to finally open for Wolves. The goals are going to start coming. Raul Jimenez to get his first goal of the season, obviously back from that big head injury. Trincao as well for me. 2-0 Wolves.
Rod?
I think Chelsea Villa. This is a game I kind of want to be over already, and it hasn't even kicked off. Although I have heard Chelsea, they could be without some key players for the weekend, including Kante, Havertz, and Lukaku. But Villa can mirror that in losing Buendia and losing Martinez, Konza, Traore, potentially Bailey and Sanson. Away at Chelsea in their form, I can see it being 3-1 to Chelsea. I'm not looking forward to the game one bit. Like, what do you think?
I'm actually going to be a bit more optimistic. I think Villa are going to do quite a good job against Chelsea. I could see them sitting quite deep. I think they're a bit better at the back than most teams Chelsea have played so far, despite other than Liverpool. I think they might be able to deal with Lukaku. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Chelsea from scoring, though. I think this might be a 1-1 draw.
Must say, to be honest, last year beat them 2-1 at home and drew 1-1 away. So if we can have anything close to that as a repeat, I will be happy. But Chelsea this year looked like a complete powerhouse.
Yeah, definitely. Danny, how do you see this one go, mate?
As much as I would like a Villa win and them to go to Stamford Bridge and take some points away from Chelsea, I just can't see it. Chelsea looking so strong at the start of the season, and it's going to be a domination, I'm afraid, Rod. It's going to be 4-0 Chelsea.
I think that's fair.
I think that's harsh. Right, Leeds versus Liverpool, Sunday, Super Sunday, one game. I see this one. I think Leeds are going to do it. Packed Elland Road on a Sunday afternoon. I think Liverpool are going to struggle against Leeds. I think Leeds bring a certain type of energy to a game, and you know what you're going to get with them. Obviously, Liverpool have started okay this season. I just feel like Leeds might do them. I just got that gut feeling, you know. I'm going to go with Leeds 3-1. Rod.
I think with Leeds, they're at home. They've got the backing of their fans. Ellen Road is going to be rocking. And last year we saw them draw with Liverpool at home and narrowly lose away. I think this year they're a bit of a better outfit. They've had more time to gel. I can see it being a draw. I can see 2-2, and I can see it being a brilliant game of football. It's meant to be a Super Sunday, and I think it will live up to that.
Yeah,
there is one game.
Yeah, best game of the weekend, I'd say, like on paper. Maybe Chelsea Villa as well up there. Danny, how do you see that one go, mate?
I'm also going to go for a Leeds win, you know. This is going to be Dan James's debut. He's going to come on in the last 15 minutes. Liverpool are going to be pushing for the winner, dominating possession, really pushing up, squeezing Leeds, and the ball's going to go over the top, and Dan James is going to run through and knock it past Alisson to make it 3-2. That is my prediction. It's going to be a great game, as you guys said. And you saw that last season. Those games were great.
Yeah, Monday Night Football. Rod, Everton against Burnley.
Obviously, it's nice anytime football's on. I can't see this game being too exciting. Everton are at home, but we know what we're going to get with Burnley. It's likely they're going to sit deep. See it being low scoring. I think 1-0 Everton.
Yeah, how many free kicks should be given but aren't given by the referee because they're letting everything go now?
And what we've seen is, remember, I was watching an interview yesterday, I think it was with Michael Oliver, and he said when they first brought VAR in, they were expecting it to be embedded within 3 years and so people can get comfortable with it. I think this year, the rules are a bit clearer. I think they've made up for things maybe last year they didn't do. I do think the introduction of VAR was needed. I think the application through the referees has been inconsistent. But I think this year, hopefully, this is the third year of it being implemented. Hopefully, the application is better.
Yeah, with Everton Burnley as well. I feel like the way the game's being played now, with players being able to be like definitely like 100% more physical than last year, I think it really suits Burnley. However, I think Everton are going to win this one. I've just been really impressed with them. I think they're going to boss the midfield. Burnley are going to sit deep, but I just think they've got too much going forward, Everton, for Burnley to stop. I'm going to go with a 2-0 Everton. What do you think, Danny?
It's going to be an absolute sleeper, an absolute snore fest. It's 0-0, I'm afraid. I just can't see anything past that.
It's important to note that Burnley, you know exactly what you're getting, but year in, year out, they always do okay.
It's a credit to the manager, isn't it?
Imagine being a Burnley fan.
We love you, Burnley. All right. Anyway, that's the end of the show. It's been absolutely, great to have Rod on here. We're going to hope to have Rod on most weeks now. And obviously, Danny's still going to be here, hopefully. I'm definitely going to be here. Just had a really good time with you boys today.
I think it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I think we've had a good chat. I think we've covered a lot of bases, and I'm looking forward to future releases and future discussions. It was a pleasure to be here, boys.
Cheers.
Absolute
Danny?
pleasure, boys. I think Rod should be a mainstay, but let us know if you don't like him. But I think he should stay.
You probably don't like Danny, so let us know if you want us to get rid of Danny. Anyway, guys, it's been absolutely superb having you both on here. That was that FPL Game Week 4. We'll be back next week with Game Week 5. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.